The Mets may be down, but they're not out. We'll tell you what the Reds need to do this weekend to keep up the hot start.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love these Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken that love of the game. We have taken that love for this team, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if this is your first time here, welcome. We want you to become an everydayer. That means you'll be here every day. To do that, just click that subscribe button, click that like button, do that on your YouTube feeds. If you're watching us over here on YouTube, if you're in the audio feed, make sure you click subscribe for whatever platform you are using. We want to have you here every day talking Reds baseball with us. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about what to watch for in this upcoming weekend series with those down and kind of out New York Mets. It's a drastically different New York Mets team than the one that they expected to field last April versus this April. We're also going to preview the pitching matchups. There's a couple matchups that don't necessarily favor the Reds in this series, which gives us a little bit of pause. We're going to dig into that. And we're going to talk about the things in this series that we are most worried about. Before we get into any of that, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use the code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match of up to $100. All right, Jeffrey, let's get started with looking at this series and the things that we think are the most possible to watch for, things that we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on as this series rolls through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different things like that because it feels like the Reds have gotten off to a pretty decent start. I think that hot might be a little bit of an overreaction, but 4-2 is definitely a lot better than 1-5. Exactly, 2-0 in series, and just keep it rolling, right? You win 2 out of 3. You're a pretty good ball club. So that's what we're looking for here. But I think to really kind of keep this going, we got to start off with Elly. We got to start off with Elly de la Cruz, the man that, I mean, as far as star power goes on this team, he has the most. He has the upside. He has the ability to just ascend into the pantheon of greats when it comes to baseball. But he hasn't yet. He hasn't done the sort of breakout yet that we're looking for from him. He's got a nice little hitting streak going, right? He is the epitome of, do you look at the glass half full or do you look at it half empty? Do you look at the strikeouts or do you look at the hitting streak? All that different stuff. But I think this weekend we need to see a little bit of a breakout. And I'm kind of putting a number on that because I think, defensively you can't really put numbers on it. We just need to see him be consistent in the field. But what I want to see from him is at the end of this weekend, he has gotten on base at least 6 times, 6 or more. Is what I'm looking for. And I don't care how. If it's a walk, if it's a single, if he hits a home run, whatever it is, give me 6 times, twice per game, because that is the kind of weapon that this Reds team needs if it's going to turn a hot start into a hot season.
I think I kind of like that. If we're talking about a walk and a hit in each of the 3 games, that's twice per game that Elly the Disruptor is on base making things happen. I think that's a reasonable ask. On the defensive side of things, I just need him to play sound, fundamental baseball. You're right. It's hard to quantify exactly what we're looking for, but we know it when we see it, right? I want him to field the ball, throw the ball, not flip the ball and turn a cartwheel and do the flare thing. Let's just play sound, fundamental defense and get through this series with a win.
And I firmly believe he can do that. He has shown it at every level. There's a point where he figures things out. There's a point where he settles down and he gets into a groove. That's what baseball is. Baseball is getting into a groove, letting the game come to you. Feels like there's a lot of cases so far this season. It feels like he's trying to force the issue. He's going to get to that point where everything just comes naturally. And I can't wait to see what he does when that point hits. Another guy I'm looking at this weekend, and especially because we're going to talk about those pitching matchups, the matchups that don't necessarily look as great on paper for the Reds. And I'm looking at Will Benson because the Reds are going to face some lefties in this weekend series with the Mets. Will Benson needs to be on the field every single day and in the lineup every single day. I don't want to see this, well, maybe we give him an off day or something like that. This is the kind of weekend stretch. This is kind of the 3-game stretch that if you're going to prove you're an everyday ball player, you need to be out there every single day. And part of that is, obviously David Bell's got to put him in the lineup, but I think that will be telling if they do give him an off day against a lefty, to say nothing of the fact that if you're taking Will Benson out of this lineup, I don't know who you're putting in for him.
And that's really the thing. I don't know how you can afford to give him an off day right now. For me, he's going to play all 3 games of this series. And you're right. He's going to need to be productive. And that doesn't mean that he goes 3 for 3 in all 3 games and right, does something astronomical. Much like we're talking about with Elly, really, if he can draw a walk and have a hit in each game. So 6 times on base throughout the series where he's facing lefties in 2 of those games, I think that's success. And I think if he continues to play good defense, like he has been, and gets on base twice per game, that's an amazing series for him against a lefty heavy rotation coming through this weekend.
And it's something that we've seen. I mean, he has had good at bats. He has had some battles when it comes to lefty on lefty matchups. He's already had an extra base hit. He's shown the power, but he's also shown a couple of at bats where he's gotten a little bit outclassed. Just don't do that every time up against the Quintanas of the world and the Severinos or Severino, I think, is a righty. But still, like when you're looking at the matchups that the Reds have with the Mets, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for Will Benson. And does he show that he can rise above that struggle?
Well, one of the things I'm going to be watching, and I think one of the Reds' keys to success in winning their 3rd series of the year, is for Spencer Steer to remain on a heater. I think very quietly he has put together some numbers that people haven't realized just how hot he's been. I know the Grand Slam was great, and Spencer Steer has done some things, but let's put this in perspective. So far this year, his slash line, Jeff, is 435, 480, 739. I need that productivity to continue, especially when they're facing the left-handed pitchers. Spencer Steer is going to have to be the guy that drives this offense, that drives this lineup while those lefties are pitching.
And I know that he hits higher up in the order against lefties particularly, but I just think it's hilarious that he's batting 7th against right-handed. I mean, just the way that he plays the game. He is such a consistent hitter. He needs to be higher up in the order. I love what he brings to the game every single day. And you're right. I mean, AL East teams, they're very happy to not be playing. Like right now, or AL East, NL East team, sorry. Like right now, the Nationals and the Phillies are like texting the Mets, like, dude, watch out for this Steer guy. He's gonna hit the ball.
Absolutely, and because we've talked about the sheer volume of lefties they're going to see in this series, that also means that Stuart Fairchild is going to get a ton of playing time. And what does that mean? What do we need from him? He hasn't had very many at bats thus far this season, only 8. But the times that he has been in there defensively, he's left a lot to be desired. What I need from Stuart Fairchild this weekend is for him to maybe break out of that 4A mold that I keep talking about. I need him to impress somehow. I need him to play solid defense. He cannot afford to have any more mental lapses like he did the opening series in Cincinnati. He's going to need to take advantage of this playing time, these at-bats, and he's going to need to perform because if he doesn't, there's going to leave a giant hole in the lineup that the Reds are already struggling to find productivity in when there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound.
But I think for me, like watching Stuart Fairchild play, I'm not seeing the confidence. Like he's got to know that he is center fielder number 2 right now on the team. He is the guy, at least until TJ Friedl comes back, that's going to be manning center field for a decent portion of these games. So he's got to act like a center fielder. Too many times is there a fly ball that either he or Spencer Steer or he or Will Benson can catch and he defers to the other guy. TJ Friedl never does that. Center fielders.
That's not how that works, Jeff. There's two field generals. There's one that plays shortstop, and they're in charge on the infield for the most part. And in the outfield, the center fielder directs the traffic. They are the ones, if they call you off, you get out of the way. Baseball works that way from every level, from T-ball all the way through Major League Baseball. And you're absolutely right. Multiple occasions, Stuart Fairchild did not do that. And that's what we need to see from him. We need the confidence, we need the assertiveness, and that will lead to some success for him, I think.
Because, like, dude, you're out there. Like, I don't really think you need to ask permission to make plays if you're out there. David Bell believes in you. Nick Krall believes in you. Make the plays. Do the baseball. That's what we want to see Stuart Fairchild do this weekend. I completely agree with you.
Well, and this is what I know, Jeff. These four players, the four players we talked about, Elly De La Cruz, Will Benson, Spencer Steer, and Stuart Fairchild, need to have strong showings this weekend with the Reds facing two left-handed pitchers in order for the Reds to win their third series.
Coming up, the Reds have two starters trying to prove themselves this weekend. We'll tell you what Hunter Greene and Andrew Abbott need to do and what we need to see from them. That's coming up next. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Focus, and they've also got vegan and veggie as well. Also discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks, and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up for your springtime goals. You can get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals, so you can get back to doing what you love this spring. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next box. Again, that's code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next box while your subscription is active.
Testing my skills on PrizePicks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops or baseball knowledge into serious cash. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 on NBA, on NHL, on college basketball, on Major League Baseball. The opportunities and the possibilities are endless with PrizePicks. You can also put together some prize picks for MLB this season. You can get in on whether Jonathan India is going to homer in a game. You just click more if you think he's going to hit more than one. If you want to get in on Elly De La Cruz stealing bases, you can pick more or less on that. There are so many ways to make the game a little bit more exciting for yourself. If you want to get in on all of the action, just download the app today and use the code LockedOnMLB for your first deposit match of up to $100. Again, just download the app and use the code LockedOnMLB for up to $100 match on your first deposit. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your television all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to our everydayers out there. Thank you for being a part of the show. Coming up for our everydayers on the next Locked On Reds podcast, we're going to wrap up the Mets series. We're going to recap what happened over the weekend, give you a full analysis and maybe a little bit of trash talk too, hopefully goes our way, with Ryan Finkelstein from Locked On Mets. That's going to be coming to you on the next Locked On Reds podcast. All right, Steve, we've kind of alluded to this. We're going to preview the pitching matchups now because there are lots of storylines on the Reds side, but there's also the interesting amount of lefties. I mean, they're going to face Quintana and Sean Manaea. on the left-handed side of the mound. So where do you want to start first? Do we want to go
Let's
Reds
just
pitchers first?
yeah,
or-
let's just go chronological order on these
All right.
pitching matchups. Let's just go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because for me, Friday is actually a really intriguing matchup because left-handed pitcher Jose Quintana is on the mound for the Mets. That's going to put the Reds less than optimal lineup in this game. That spells problems for Hunter Greene, I think. Hunter Greene's coming off of probably the only truly, let's just say, ineffective start. I guess that's how maybe we'll label his start, his first go around. His first time out, Jeff, he went 4 2/3, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, struck out 7, but he walked 4. Now, Quintana didn't do that great either. He kind of matched Hunter Greene in a lot of these statistical categories his first time out. He also only made it through 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 hits instead of 5, same 2 earned runs. He did do a little bit better than Hunter Greene as far as the walks go. He only walked 2 compared to Hunter's 4. And then on strikeouts, Hunter Greene again had 7. Quintana had 4. So I think these pitchers are actually pretty evenly matched right now for where they are at the season. So the real question is, with Hunter Greene on the mound trying to take that next evolution, is he going to suffer by the fact that the Reds are facing a left-handed pitcher and may not necessarily have their best 9 on the field?
And Quintana is an old foe. I mean, 6 years. I think I'm looking at this right. 6 years of facing Jose Quintana, and he has made 14 or 13 starts, 14 total appearances against them. Has a 3.03 ERA against the Cincinnati Reds. And okay, that's a little bit more colloquial than it is really useful, but Quintana knows how to pitch against this Reds team in the past. Now, of course, much different lineup on hand. I look for CES to jump all over him. I look for Spencer Steer to jump all over him. Really hope Jonathan India has a big game against Jose Quintana. It's going to be kind of like we mentioned in the first inning. It's going to be the Elly de la Cruzes who struggle against lefties. It's going to be the Will Bensons who are trying to show us that he doesn't struggle against lefties anymore. What are they going to do in this matchup? I think this is going to be a low-scoring one because I do think we're going to see Hunter Greene mix that splitter in a little bit more, focus mostly on missing barrels instead of bats. You know, we always hear Chris Welsh say that, like, stop worrying about missing barrels, or missing bats, just miss the barrels, because you're going to get your strikeouts, but you're also going to get your outs when you don't get strikeouts. That's really where Hunter Greene kind of went into his issues in his first start, because his first start, it looked a lot like most of his starts of his career so far. We need to see him take that step forward. Saturday's pitching matchup is an intriguing one for me because Andrew Abbott is on Sunday, Nick Martinez is on Saturday, and there is still a pocket of people who cover the team, not just Reds fans, but people who cover the team, that believe that when Nick Lodolo comes back, Andrew Abbott may be sent down and Nick Martinez remains in the rotation. I feel like these next 2 games for both these guys are going to go a long way into deciding that. But Nick Martinez, at least in his first start, looked pretty decent. I mean, he basically looked like what we expected him to be.
He did. You know, his first time out, he made it through 5 innings. He gave up 6 hits, allowed 3 earned runs there, walked 1 guy, struck out 3. Not overpowering, but for what Nick Martinez is, I'll take it. He got the job done. See, I view this differently. I refuse to believe that Andrew Abbott is on the chopping block. I know that we keep hearing that. I refuse to believe it. I think this is Nick Martinez's last start for now. I think he'll go to the bullpen after this, and they'll slide him back in. They'll keep him stretched out as much as they can in case they need him for a doubleheader, for skipping somebody, whatever they need. I think this is the perfect slot for him to get that last start before he moves back in the bullpen, because he's going to be blessed by having facing a right-handed pitcher. That means the Reds' best version of itself right now, with the injuries that it has, will be on the field. They're, you know, facing that right-handed pitcher. Fraley will be in this game. Benson will be in this game. Martini will be in this game. Elly will be batting left-handed. It's all of the things that should help drive the Reds offense and score some runs to give Nick Martinez a little bit of cushion so he doesn't have to pitch from a place of being behind. So I think this is a great matchup. I think that Nick Martinez is probably I would favor Nick Martinez in this matchup just based on what the Reds lineup is going to look like. I think that's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to watching that on Saturday.
Yeah, Severino got rocked in his first start, and it's interesting because if you look at his line in that game, it says he only gave up 3 earned runs. That was actually just changed. The the folks who go back and they change plays based on, reviewing them and all that other stuff, gave a particular play an error where it was ruled a hit. And so because of that error, 3 runs came off of the earned run tally for Luis Severino. Still gave up 11 hits in that game. Like that's something that the Reds need to capitalize on. And especially with the lefties that really bookend this series, they need to get up on Luis Severino there.
It looks like, you look at his line and he didn't walk anybody and you think, okay, well, he didn't give any free passes. That's just because they were dialing him up. There wasn't an opportunity to walk.
Be aggressive. Be aggressive in that matchup. Sunday, Andrew Abbott on the mound. It's going to be a lefty on lefty matchup here. Abbott against Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea is an interesting candidate. He was a guy that we talked about in the offseason as possibly a buy low guy. His first start, he showed why. 6 innings pitched, shutout ball, 8 strikeouts, did have 2 walks and 1 hit allowed. But I always kind of think in my mind, whenever you look at a pitcher's performance and you see that they have more strikeouts than base runners allowed, a pretty good day on the mound.
I think this is a big ask for Andrew Abbott because once again, he's facing another left-handed pitcher. The Reds' best lineup is not going to be in there. And as you say, Manaea really 8 strikeouts, 1 hit. He did walk 2 guys, but I mean, for a starting pitcher and for as bad as the Mets have been, to have this line, this is going to be a good matchup. I worry that Andrew Abbott may put a little bit of extra pressure on himself in this situation because I don't think that the Reds are going to be a offensive scoring juggernaut in this game. You talked about that other game being a low scoring game. I am hoping this is the low scoring game and the Reds can steal one, 3-2, 2-1, something like that, because I don't anticipate that there's going to be a lot of scoring on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup for Abbott on Sunday because, I mean, he did do a little bit better in his first start of allowing soft contact against the Phillies and trying to keep the ball on the ground. There was still plenty of fly balls, still plenty of line drives that found gloves and things like that. Just wasn't quite as bad. Last season, remember, we said that his average exit velocity was higher than league average. His first start, it was below league average, so that was good to see. But he's going up against Pete Alonso. You can't allow too many fly balls with Pete Alonso. Like, dude's going to get his if you let him put it in the air, and especially if he puts it in the air. Great American Ballpark Sunday. I didn't see what the weather forecast is. I mean, sure, it's not going to be the humid temperatures and things like that let the ball fly in Great American, but let's see here.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'm going to make some innings. 59. I'm going to make some innings predictions here. I think Hunter Greene will throw 5 full innings on Friday. I think that Nick Martinez will not improve upon his last start, and he will once again just sit right at 5 innings. I don't see him getting into the 6th. And then for Andrew Abbott, I'm going to say he gets through 6 innings on Sunday. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think he's going to be pitch efficient, and I think he gives 6 full innings on Sunday.
He got a little fixated, Andrew Abbott did in his last start, about trying to miss some bats in a couple of spots, and that's where he got his walks from. I think that he kind of reins back on that. I'm going to go a little bit more optimistic. I think everybody goes 6. I think that this Mets lineup has just shown no fire whatsoever so far. Hopefully, knock on wood, they don't figure that fire out this weekend, because there is some talent there. We're not talking about a very untalented lineup, but I think that this is a good shot for the Reds starting pitching staff to take that next step.
All right. Well, we have told you the good things to watch for in this weekend series with the Mets. We've also now previewed what the pitching matchups are going to look like. And coming up, Jeff and I are both going to tell you a couple of things that we're concerned about in this 3-game weekend series. We've got that coming up next. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your investment thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees applies. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. You can join the Locked On Reds Insiders today. Jeff has a revamped program for you over there. And if you want to be an insider, he wants you to be an insider. For just $4.99 a month, you will become a smarter Reds fan. You will become the Reds fan that your friends and family come to get the inside scoops. All you have to do to become an insider is text insider to 513-597-0944, and you're going to get a free 14-day trial to see if you like it. Also, make sure you check out InsideTheReds.com, where we're all writing about the Cincinnati Reds, and we can talk Reds with you in between games over on our Discord server. The link for that is down in today's show description. All right, Jeff, we have talked about the things that we're kind of excited to watch for there in the first segment. We previewed these pitching matchups that are going to be very, very interesting over the weekend out at Great American Ballpark. But there are some things that we're a little bit worried about, things that just concern us a little bit that we're going to be paying attention to as this series progresses.
Yeah, and I think I actually kind of want to flip this based on our order that we have written on the notes. I want to start with Candelario. I think that we got the whole David Bell hoped thing, right? It feels like whenever David Bell uses that word, we all got to reach for the Tums or something, because he usually gives us the most optimistic prognoses.
Yeah, and listen, I didn't like what I saw from Candelario on the field, and I have tweeted about it. There's been some pushback from the fans, and that's fine. In that tweet, I said, God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the Reds are telling us the truth. I hope that there's not a problem. I want Candelario as a veteran presence to help lead this team. But I am concerned. I am with you. I went back and I have listened to what David Bell said like 10 times now. He says, I hope it's an elbow strain. He doesn't say that it is a hyperextended elbow. He doesn't say that they know it's a hyperextended elbow. He says, I hope it's a hyperextended elbow, and that the trainers don't seem to be too concerned. Well, they weren't too concerned about Matt McLain's shoulder either until we hear that he had surgery. So until someone from the Cincinnati Reds looks in a camera and says, guess what? He's starting today, then I'll relax. And this is not a case of wanting a guy to be hurt. We want him to be healthy. We want him to be in the lineup. I'm just nervous because we haven't heard anything at all.
Yeah, and I think the problem mostly with this is as well, Candelario goes down, Espinal's got to play every day.
Oh, you might have to play against left-handed pitching. Yeah. That might be where we're at.
And I'm a lefty. I'm not very good at the left-handed pitching. Maybe they call it Mike Ford.
Lefty.
And he plays first base, or Martini plays first base, and then CES plays third base. You got to squint really hard to see
goes to third base, and let's not even go there. Let's just hopefully Candelario's in the lineup and everything's fine, and we can move forward from there.
But that's why we're worried about it, because what comes afterward doesn't seem a whole lot of fun. One of the things, kind of following along with what I said about Elly, I'm really hoping that we see that from Elly. I'm kind of expecting to see him get on base 6 times this weekend or more. Love to see if he gets on more. The thing that I'm a little bit worried about, though, is that he's going to be unfocused. He's going to be across the diamond from one of the best shortstops in the game, and one of the best shortstops for the last decade plus in the game, in Francisco Lindor. And hopefully he takes home some lessons about him, and not necessarily worried about showing him up, doing some sort of flashy thing that makes, in the back of his mind, he's thinking Lindor's like, oh, wow, that Elly guy, he's pretty good over there. I hope he's not worried about that. I hope he's focused on every single play, and we're going to see it. That's the thing, that when you're 22 years old, I don't care what a player says. I don't care what a professional athlete tells me. 22-year-old human beings give a darn about what other people think about him. And if he can put that away for a moment, I think that he will find that when he's focused and when he's concentrated and when he is, taking every play and completely honed in on it, he is going to get that respect. He doesn't have to earn it by doing something that's going to be on the ESPN Top 10.
And as much as you're concerned about Elly and how he's going to respond to that, I am concerned about Hunter Greene. Now, I know I said I hope that he would make it through 6 innings and that all the starters would make it through the 6th inning. That would be great. But I am concerned that Hunter Greene will be the same Hunter Greene that he was in the first start and the same Hunter Greene that he was last year. That Hunter Greene only throws 2 pitches. That Hunter Greene throws a flat fastball. That Hunter Greene is very pitch inefficient. That Hunter Greene has 100 pitches by the 5th inning. They cannot have that kind of start from Hunter Greene in order for them to be successful. We talked about this in that pitching preview segment, Jeff. He's going against a left-handed pitcher. It's not going to be the Reds' best lineup out there when Hunter Greene's on the mound. He can't afford to be the Hunter Greene that we've seen. He needs to be that Hunter Greene we've been hoping will show up. And I'm just concerned that he's not going to be there.
And that's kind of where, looking at this weekend, I'm a little bit concerned on the hitting side with Will Benson. And it's not because I think that he's going to fail. It's just I'm a little bit worried of what I've seen so far, because I've seen him hit Patrick Corbin. But a lot of people hit Patrick Corbin because he's not that good of a pitcher anymore. Then I saw him kind of struggle against lefties from Philly. Philly has a lot of lefties, by the way. It was like Matt Strom and Gregory Soto and I messed up the reliever's name. The start of the face. There's so many different lefties that it felt like the Phillies just kept throwing at him, and he had some competitive at bats that turned into outs, and then he had some non-competitive at bats that were outs very quickly. So we've kind of seen the spectrum. What Will Benson do we get with even more lefties from the Mets coming up? And that's going to be something that I think is super important, because we've talked about the importance of everyday Will Benson to this team. But everyday Will Benson cannot be a black hole against lefties when it comes to the lineup. So that's got to be something that he's got to show this weekend, and just have some good at bats, maybe draw a walk or two, get a single. Don't try to do too much, because it feels like there's a lot of cases where he's like rolling over a pitch and turning it into a ground out, and then that's that. There's nothing else for him, or he's just swinging at pitches that he doesn't see. So I'm interested to see how he takes that step forward, but I am a little bit concerned that we don't see it this weekend.
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from with that. I thought in the Philadelphia series, he looked okay. I don't think he ever truly looked overmatched, but you're right. He's going to have to work some counts, draw some walks, get on base. Look, success for Will Benson, I want to say this again, is not going 3 for 3 with 2 home runs every day. I mean, I'll take that. If he wants to do that, give that to me. But success for Will Benson is challenging the pitchers, is working counts, is drawing walks, is a timely base hit, an extra base hit. Doesn't necessarily have to be homers. But you're right. If the Reds are going to be successful, he has to show that he can be that guy. And this would be the perfect series, I think, for him to cement himself into that role, because he's going to probably get 2 opportunities to do it. I think he'll play all 3 games of this series, which means he'll face lefties twice.
And the Reds are going up against a Mets team that was 1-5 at home and are on their first road trip of the year. Hopefully they can kick them while they're down. And that's going to do it for us here today on the Locked On Reds podcast. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you are not an everydayer, please become one. We appreciate our everydayers so much. You guys are what makes this show go, and gals as well. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Take us with you. If you're watching here on YouTube and you end up going on a run, or you're driving around somewhere and you can't watch a video, please don't watch videos while you drive. By the way, that's weird. Listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. That is the better way to go about it, because we're going to be with you all season long. And coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, Steve, we're going to have Ryan Finkelstein from the Locked On Mets podcast. Hopefully we'll be talking some trash with Ryan here, but we'll recap this series and kind of give you the firsthand perspective of both of us on a little bit of a post-series crossover. Tell them what they want, Steve.
Well, make sure that you are subscribed, because we're going to keep gathering up all of the facts, all of the news, all of the info, bring it right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day. Can you imagine like you playing third base? Oh my God. Talk about falling off a rowing machine.
I did in high school, and it was bad.